perfect. So my presentation today is concerning the intersection of enterprise, education and industry, and that's with a focus on setting a research agenda for education as being that origin for sustainability through entrepreneurship. So this presentation is the Agile Organisation and Entrepreneurial Sustainability. As I was kindly introduced there at the start of this proceedings today, here is some further information. And on the slides, there is the QR code just to my own website for further information in terms of research, collaboration, consultancy and teaching. As stated, I'm an Associate Professor at the University of the West of Scotland, and I also hold roles in Germany and examiner roles within other universities within Scotland. And those are a number of the books and publications relating to my key area of entrepreneurship education. So just to kind of get started, these are my 10 beliefs concerning enterprise. So of course, we talk about now enterprise as being a part of a process towards a practice. You know, we move beyond this idea of born and made, this sort of born and made debate. But I take the firm belief that everyone can create, innovate, and think of something new, but that comes from the world around you. So you need to think about the context. Where do we see in terms of lifestyles, gaps, opportunities, etc., and the need in society for change? Entrepreneurship is, of course, more than just venture creation, and skills are entrepreneurial. You already will possess a few, so it's that coming together or a grand total of skills for enterprise. Then, as I said, it's reflecting on lifestyles, hobbies, gaps within society, within day-to-day activity, which instigates entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship concerns many people, so we need to understand stakeholder relationships. So where we talk about enterprise, we talk about stakeholder engagement. When we think historically, entrepreneurship is at this intersection of economics, marketing, innovation, and sociology. It's about people, it's about processes, it's about products and services. It's all of that coming together. Being entrepreneurial involves work, time, investment, and sometimes luck. So you must do to then be. There needs to be activity, there needs to be engagement with the people and the problem. And enterprising activity creates impact towards enduring change and meeting the needs and desires of society. But in terms of the focus of today, we talk about entrepreneurial sustainability in education. And within the context of Scotland, there are a number of reports that has highlighted what we now call the National Performance Framework, which is very much a contextualised approach to the Sustainability Development Goals. And as I said, anyone that wishes to have a copy of the slides can get these after the presentation. Scotland looks at enterprise and sustainability through a number of socio-economic factors, and that includes fair work and the role of universities towards building our ambition as being the greatest small entrepreneurial and innovative country on the planet. So with that in mind, we understand that universities are initiators of invention and innovation, but also through education and intervention, we look to socialise universities as key change agents within society. So as I said, there are a number of reports there that delve into this further concerning universities as a hub of knowledge and can instigate innovative industry. In terms of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship works in tandem with institutions and individuals towards society. So the expectation of markets and the wealth of opportunity and resources, that's where we see entrepreneurship realised within society. In terms of its engagement with institutions, it's how we can organise a process for entrepreneurship. And we see that in terms of sustaining enterprise through education, sustaining enterprise through employability and new venture mechanisms. And then, of course, when we consider entrepreneurship and the outcomes of that, you formalise that process to create the impactful ecosystem. So that's just my abstract conceptual model there at the left-hand side in terms of these key factors for strategizing enterprise. And entrepreneurship is that multi-stakeholder endeavour towards these outcomes of entrepreneurial universities. So what do we see within entrepreneurial universities? Increased intentions, new venture creation, bolstering of markets and industry, and then the wider socioeconomic benefits. And that means that we require this logical and responsive purpose and process that involves many people. So this is taken from my first book, and this looks at entrepreneurial approaches within university. So for us to be sustainable in terms of economically, ecologically, financially, we need to consider the difference between what is enterprising education and what is entrepreneurship education. And that comes about from understanding and valuing the individual and the skills that they have towards that new venture creation mechanism. And that's where we see at the top of the diagram here, it's very much cultural and economic impacts that affect the institution, and it's how they can position themselves. And I talk about that later on in the presentation. But this notion of demystifying enterprise is very important for sustainability. What are the enterprising skills? But then what is the entrepreneurial process? That's important. The process involves people. People have the requisite skills to achieve the process. So in terms of sustainability goals in enterprise, as I said, look at this through the prism of people and process. So in terms of social equality, it's about the understanding there's opportunity there for people, but with that, there needs to be the increased opportunity for learning and skills development. And it's only with that we can understand key regional, national, and international problems for sustainable enterprise. And that's where we see that as universities, for instance, a lot of academic spin-outs and startups look at this intersection of engineering and business, the use of AI and biotechnology, where you see the amalgamation of skills and experience through a protected process of education, university, and building that legacy. Within the United Nations SDGs, from a more global standpoint, we see enterprises across the SDGs of 4, 8, 9, and SDG 11, and that brings about the necessity of, as I said, the grand total of an educational process, requisite skills, but also collaborative sectors, as I alluded to in the previous slide. So with that in mind, we consider, where do we see efficiency with collaboration? Where do we see efficiency with mutually beneficial outcomes? And from a global standpoint, we have the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, where university leaders and industry look at education for greener and sustainable outcomes. So these are the kind of strides that we're seeing at the moment, where this highlights to national context in universities what is required at a national level. So Scotland, as I said, these are the various reports. When we look at the National Performance Framework, it brings together the many institutions and factors that build a sustainable and entrepreneurial nation. So as you can see here, that's the national framework for Scotland here, the sort of petals and the flower concept here. So a competitive entrepreneurial economy built through education and investment, but then outcomes of that are to tackle socio-economic issues, dealing with poverty, dealing with inequalities in education, etc. So this is where the National Performance Framework is important, of how Scotland has contextualised the SDG framework. In terms of, and of course that takes into consideration that national concerns as well. So we think of Scotland and the National Innovation Strategy and the National Strategy for Economic Transformation. All of these are important along with the entrepreneurial campus, as this highlights the role of universities towards entrepreneurial outcomes and entrepreneurial activity. And a key recommendation from this is looking at particular sectors in Scotland, focusing on the strengths of the nation and the role of universities in collaborating that to maximise output and maximise opportunities. For those that have visited Scotland in the audience, you know our key sectors, transport, tourism, oil and gas, food and drink, hospitality, as key sectors, infrastructure based upon decades of engineering and manufacturing excellence as well. So there are many sectors which we now look at as promoting excellence in Scotland economy and also in Scottish entrepreneurialism. In terms of sustainable enterprise and the role of the agile organisation in Scotland, we see here that in terms of the four Scottish universities in the global rankings for SDGs, you're seeing that consistency of four of, as we call it, our big five in Scotland, producing high numbers of spin-outs, but we're also seeing the more relatively modern universities or newer universities understanding, of course, the links and demands of industry towards practical learning, experiential education. But it brings about certain challenges in terms of the resource issue and opportunity to create impact. What are the challenges that need to be confronted? So I've just highlighted here, and that this is similar to many nations around the world. It's been able to extend regional enterprise. What are the lessons learned within different areas of a country? Where do we see that university engagement and industry engagement? Where is it inclusive of communities? And are we making sure that the enterprise is diverse in capturing the ideas? We need to make sure that it's inclusive and diverse to really respond to national and regional problems. So the evolved organisation, these are the challenges and opportunities that I've witnessed in my own research. Looking at Scotland's policy and recent advancements, we're seeing that there is directed outcomes and approaches within teaching in university, but it's the regional collaboration. What next for researchers and graduates within university contexts? Where do we see direct alignment between research at university and the international and global concerns? Where do we see that international collaboration? And we know during COVID and whether it be geopolitical changes and with Britain and European Union, etc., that can be different and difficult in retaining those collaborations. And there's new, obviously, ways of achieving that through new initiatives, which can be exciting. But for universities as well, there's different approaches. There's competition at a national level. So where do we see the greater cohesion and greater development there? Within my second book, I spoke of the university model for entrepreneurship. So within universities and industry, we need to capture the many methods of communication and ingenuity. So how do we align the institutional purpose with the needs of industry? What is the motive? So we need to assert that enterprising agenda. And then through that, what is the message and medium? How do we communicate this with individuals and institutions? So when we consider entrepreneurship as a philosophical discussion within universities, and we consider it as a practical process within universities, it's important to consider the wider university perspective. Are the methods of universities ringing true with industry? Are the motives beneficial for all? And that is affirmed by various tools and techniques for enterprise, as entrepreneurship within university in itself is not enough to be a sustainable and agile organisation. There needs to be the multi-stakeholder appreciation. So that brings about the many stakeholders within a university and towards industry. So the 7 stakeholders down this first column talks about the various individuals and expertise that is required for an agile organisation concerning enterprise for sustainability. So the philosopher and the educator looking at concepts, looking at what are the key understandings for enterprise, but then looking out towards developmental enterprise from teaching to practice, the policymaker and the implementer. How do we then bridge those gaps between the university and society? And then someone at the top of the university or college to champion enterprise. But surrounding all of that, we have enablers of ecosystems. What are the issues which impact a university, and what are the challenges that present itself to the university? And then, of course, the wider and undiscovered stakeholder. We could say to some extent COVID was that undiscovered and a surprising stakeholder. So it's always preparing for the unknown and thinking of a plan B for an institution. These are just some examples of the forms of the enterprising university. So, as we've seen from the 1950s onwards, enterprise presented itself as within strategic management, a new wave of global management perspectives. Now we see enterprise as being an opportunity for building the individual in terms of professional skills and interpersonal skills as well. So role playing, external engagement, enhancing entrepreneurial personalities, and knowledge transfer at a university and corporate level. So these are the various ripple effects of enterprise moving forward. And lots of research I've written concerning enterprise within education and how we see this move from the didactic to the experiential to the industry facing, those three different waves of enterprise activity. So in closing in the next few minutes, the role of the enterprising university, we understand that universities, there's different experiences, there's different challenges, and that leads to a fragmented national landscape. It's very much looking at dealing with resources and allocating them efficiently. So, with moving forward, we need to understand that as an enterprising university, it's to take on board alignment with policy and establishing a capacity towards enterprise within a university, and that can be through mobilising different programs, mobilising different partnerships with industry. And I think I present that in the next slide here. Apologies, that's just a duplication of the previous slide. The enterprise principles model here looks at various steps that are required in industry towards achieving an agile university that is enterprising and working together with various partners. So policy alignment, university and industry with new projects, with new programs, need to assert their outcomes and their aims to align with what's already there to join and enhance through engagement. Then a regional focus, appreciating the campus context, and institutionalizing for sustainability as well. And we see that where it's done quite well at university level, where they're very much aware of SDGs and related activity with their courses. But where do we source activity and creativity? So it's having that greater exposure of enterprise programs to industry and then measuring that within an ecosystem. And that then leads to another concept in my first book, institutional review, capacity and capability, the people and their skills, mobility and durability, the agile organisation. And this is just to close here, just an example, the concept model again, just at the left-hand side here. These are just some examples of the University of the West of Scotland's activity in building sustainable enterprise for efficient businesses, financially, ecologically and sustainably. We have our incubator space. We work with local councils. We have our Help to Grow, which was the post-COVID UK activity to help businesses grow, and working with our alumni and KTP offerings with small business. And within the slides, there are the QR codes to the website in terms of research and activity. Moving on further, and I would encourage those in attendance today to consider their own business or university and look at something like this ripple effect model. Consider the activity of your primary stakeholders, your secondary stakeholders, and your tertiary stakeholders. And this is a sort of bird's eye view of the University of the West of Scotland, our internal activity with our research group and student-facing activities, helping enterprise among students and graduates, towards working with the regional and national council, and then international as well. So when you're considering networks involving your institution, how does that align to wider strategies in industry? Where can you create and build academic and professional teams, and how can you create impact in the community? And just to close, these are the last three themes here that relate to the research group, and I'd be happy to discuss further in terms of what we do in Scotland, collaboration, and working internationally towards a sustainable economy and sustainable societies. Just as an add-on here, this is a new book, myself and a colleague from University of Bolton released a new book that has international cases of enterprise education and industry, and that is released this summer with Routledge. So that includes chapters from invited contributors around the world, and that talks about enterprise and industry through education. So thank you very much for listening, and any questions I'll be more than happy to answer. As I said, there is my email address here, and there are links here to for further information, and happy to answer any questions and possibly collaborate in the future towards any international efforts and research. And thanks very much.